Early one Wednesday morning, I rolled up to work a little early at the WWE Performance Center, and it's lucky that I did, because therein I had a conversation I will never forget. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. And if you are passionate about the craft of professional wrestling, and you're never done learning all about it, then you've landed in the exact right place. So go ahead, join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe down below, and if you ring the notification bell so that you find out every time I publish a new video, believe it or not, that helps me out a lot. This is the end of my Icons and Insights series, in which I share with you wisdom gleaned and lessons learned from superstars of wrestling past and present. And I want to take it all home by returning to where this journey roughly began. Today I want to share with you a lesson I learned from none other than the Heartbreak Kid himself, Shawn Michaels. One morning back in the spring of 2019, I turned up early for work at the WWE Performance Center, and this became an annoying habit of mine because, for whatever reason, I could never seem to get a good night's sleep during my Orlando stints. I would wake up about an hour before my alarm was set to go off, and my brain would start racing about 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I would have to accept the fact that I was not going to get back to sleep, so I might as well just get on with my day. And even though you score no points for being early in professional wrestling, I just decided to do the trek into the PC. And I flipped on the lights, turned on the Keurig machine, and fired off a cup of the sweet black elixir of life, Italian roast. And then I sat down at the conference table and watched as the seconds slowly ticked by on the wall clock while nobody else seemed to be coming into the office. And then, all of a sudden, who should walk in a chewed-up camouflage hat and flannel shirt but none other than Shawn Michaels, who plunked down right beside me at the conference table. And while we had ourselves a generous slice of awkward silence for about a minute or two, I eventually realized, we're gonna have to talk about something. Two things I should probably mention here before we go on. First, in all my stints at the PC, I had had virtually no meaningful personal interactions with Shawn Michaels prior to this. We'd pass in the corridor and say, "Hey, how are you?" that sort of thing, but all very innocuous small talk. And second, just in case you didn't see the first installment of this series, I am an absolute devotee of the series of tag team matches between the Rockers and the Brainbusters from back in 1989. And Shawn Michaels is one of the Rockers. It's him and Crazy Uncle Marty. That's the team. Now granted, to a lot of people, Shawn Michaels isn't a tag team wrestler, right? He's Mr. WrestleMania. He is the guy bent on taking the craziest bumps and delivering the most memorable of matches on the biggest stage of them all. The ladder match at 10, the Ric Flair retirement match at 24, the back-to-back epic length matches against The Undertaker. That's the kind of stuff he's known for. He's the showstopper in singles matches. And I guess if you were born after the millennium, you could almost be excused for not knowing that Shawn Michaels was a tag team wrestler, that he was half of the Rockers. Almost excused. So, after we got all the early morning coworker chit-chatty stuff out of the way, and no one else seemed to be coming into the office, it dawned on me, this is when we had the conversation about those Brainbusters tag matches from back in the 80s, because those matches are brilliant. And if you consider for just a moment who the four players in those matches are, Shawn, Marty, Arn, and Tully, and you think, which of these four players might have the most to brag about overall, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that it's Shawn. And maybe he would take some, if not a lot of the credit for the brilliance of those matches for himself. But he didn't. While recounting to me the stories of those legendary tag team matches from Madison Square Garden and Saturday night's main event, I became more and more impressed with the way Shawn Michaels assigned credit for the success of those matches to everyone involved but himself. He even afforded the referee more credit than he gave to himself. And throughout our entire conversation, Shawn was magnanimous. He was so generous, especially to those players out there that do not enjoy the same level of international stardom that he does. And he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to be that way about it. We were just two guys who turned up early for work, swapping stories over a cup of coffee. Getting to chat with a guy I had studied was very rewarding, but eventually someone else did come into the office and the conversation turned, and before we knew it, it was time to go to work. But that day, I learned a really valuable lesson from one of the few people walking the planet that could really be described as a living legend of professional wrestling. What I learned from listening to how magnanimously Shawn described the other players in those tag team matches was this. There's enough credit, enough praise, enough kind words to go around. You don't need to hoard all of that for yourself. And yes, it might feel edifying to take all of that credit. You might feel like you want to stake your claim anywhere you can. But it does say something about you if you are the kind of person who can share the credit for your triumphs and successes. And yes, I learned a lot about being a wrestler from studying HBK matches from decades past, but I learned something just as valuable about being a true professional by sharing a conversation with him early one Wednesday morning. I hope you enjoyed this mini-series as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And if for any reason you missed a previous installment of Icons and Insights, don't sweat it. Your old pal Mike's got your back. I've already collected all of them into a handy-dandy playlist that's appearing over there right now, so you can go discover the ones that you didn't see, or rediscover the entire series right now. And down below, there's a link to my Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can join our community over there, get access to our Discord, and tons of exclusives, including a weekly video just for my patrons.